how do you help others find more joy and fulfillment?
I think my goal is to just like connect with people. That's all I feel like I have the space to give right now, is just like connect and ask them about themselves and find a commonality and, you know, build relationships with people. I hope I'm like an inviting space for like advice and laughter and comfort. And I think that's all I can give right now.
Welcome, Melissa.
Yeah, hi.
Super Than Dough podcast. Thanks for jumping on.
Of course, happy to be here.
What did it take to convince you to come on? Because I feel like I asked Kay to ask you forever ago, months ago, and then I finally see you coming on. I'm like, oh yeah, Melissa.
I saw Seth come on. I was like, okay, Seth's gonna go on.
And that was a turning point with Seth, aka Norm, aka I'm still, what did you say? It's 9 o'clock already.
Yeah. Oh, it's 9 o'clock already. He says that every single day.
Yeah, I loved it. What a nerd.
That on. Same with Josh still. Anyways, Melissa's on the Dirty Dough team. And we're super excited to have her.
Yeah, for sure. I thought I'd add a female's voice, so here I am.
And you're joining out of Colorado.
Yes.
Have you always been out there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, if you ever need another place, Utah is very welcoming. But I also don't blame you because you are away from a lot of the chaos, which probably a little bit.
It's true. I don't know how you guys work there. Whenever I come and visit, I'm like, I can't get anything done. So I'm highly effective here at my home office.
I live 4 minutes away and I work from home 90% of the time.
See? Yeah, you get it.
Do you ever come in?
Only if I have like a tour or a meeting.
Yeah. You never come in.
So just to pop in. Anyways, Melissa, give us some of your background. Let's start with that and then we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah, for sure. Let me think. So I graduated in 2008. You guys might be a little too young to remember, but it was like the worst economic time ever to graduate. So I went to the mountains for a little bit, snowboarded, and I was like, okay, I'll try to get a job. So I came to Denver, Colorado.
I don't mean to cut you. Went to the mountains. Yeah, that very briefly, but I feel like there's a lot there. Like you just lived in a cabin for 2 years and.
Oh yeah. I went to Breckenridge and I worked, for $7.50 an hour, like with a bunch of ski bums. I lived in employee housing, like 3 other girls and 300 square feet. So it was just something. I couldn't get a job. Like I had a business degree and I couldn't get a job. So I just went to the mountains and had fun, but it's like adult Disneyland there, right? So you're just snowboarding all day, sort of working and then partying, repeat. I was like, okay, I need to try something different. So I moved to Denver. It was tough finding a job. I did a bunch of brand activations. So like brands would hire me and I'd go out and just present the product. So I like Ford, I would go to an event and show them about the new Ford Fiesta. I would go to a Sarah McLachlan concert and give out free deodorants. I would go to Whole Foods and give out free cheese. And it was a lot. And I remember one defining moment with it. I was downtown Denver during the weekend. It was for Pringles, the chip. And someone had to wear the Pringles suit. So I refused to wear the Pringles. It was a blow up suit, like huge. You couldn't see out of this thing. So someone had to hold the Pringles suit's hand. So I was holding his hand, walking through downtown Denver with a college degree, like on a Saturday, like watching these people enjoy their brunches and stuff. And I was like, what am I doing? Just like this bobblehead next to me. I was like, I need a change. So I started bartending at night and spending 5 hours. This is still 2010, 2011. Economy is not great. Just like applying for jobs 5 hours a day. And that's when I finally found Maui Wowie, who our fearless leader, Jill, our CEO, she founded Maui Wowie. So I started with them in lead qualifying. So on the sales team, and that's what really brought me into the franchise.
I didn't know you were doing sales.
You just perked up. Careful what you say there. You might move to the sales team.
Bringing the big guns.
Yeah, it was fun. I was good at it too, but I mean, you guys know sales, especially at that super entry level, you can't give away too much, right? Like you need to incentivize them to move through the process. You're just like giving them a little bit. And as Mike knows, I love all of the information. I want all information as possible. And so that was a tough role for me. And there wasn't any opportunity on the operations side. So at the time, my now husband.
What was your degree? It said it was in business.
Mhm. Yeah, management, marketing. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but now that I did, I'm going to ask you, why did you have to hold the Pringle person's hand?
Because they couldn't see. It was a blow up head.
So you're literally guiding them like they are a blind person.
Yes. And something I didn't mention is I ran into an ex-boyfriend and like he looked at me like, I see who won. It's like I am mortified. Like I gotta go get a job.
You didn't even say a real job. You don't even classify that as a job. You're
No, I
saying a job.
needed something different. Yeah, it was wild. I got tons of stories like that. One time we were making steak for the Denver Broncos, but we never got to meet them. We just had to like sit in this sweaty trailer, like making steaks for them. Like so many different brands I worked with. Like the stories were wild.
Okay, you have to have a picture of the Pringles outfit. Please.
I find it for you. It's absurd. Just holding this stranger's hand in the giant blow up Pringle outfit. So that looked like Howie Robbie.
Oh yeah. Mike might wear it and you might guide him. And I'll take the pictures.
That might be scary. Melissa might lead me off a cliff for everything that I do to her.
It's like, this is for the app. Done.
Yeah. That's like Mike. Yeah.
Now you're at Maui Wowie. And
Yes.
Maui Wowie all the way up until Dirty Dough?
No, so I actually took a break. My my husband, my now husband, I'd been dating him 6 months. I was kind of getting done with the sales side of Maui Wowie. There weren't any other opportunities. And he's like, want to move to Germany? I just got a job there. And I was like, absolutely, I do. So we lived in Germany for 2 years. He worked. I did a bunch of volunteer stuff. So I worked with the American Red Cross, Stars and Stripes. I joined that German American women's group and we did a bunch of fundraising for the community. So that was just a neat opportunity. He eventually got laid off and we came back and I joined Maui Wowie at the time. They did have an operations role for me. So jumped right in with that. We were acquired by Kahala Brands a year later. And so while I stayed on the Maui brand, I was also exposed to a lot of other established brands, Cold Stone, Blimpie, Planet Smoothie, Taco Time. And then my daughter came, got her a nanny, continued to work. A year and a half later, my son came. I was feeling really burnt out with Maui Wowie. And so I was like, I am going to be a stay-at-home mom. And so after my maternity leave, I quit Maui Wowie. I left Maui Wowie. And about a month in, I was like, oh, I do not like being a stay-at-home mom. Like, this is really, really hard. And I suffered from some postpartum depression. I mean, I quit my job. I had lost my identity, right? Like, I was like, who am I? What am I doing? And I came to the conclusion that like, I will be a better partner, a better mom, a better person if I work. So I called Jill up and I was like, what do you have? What are you working on? And she was working with you and Dirty Dough. And she's like, I have an operation spot for you. And the rest is history.
Okay, awesome. And that was a year and a half ago?
Almost a year and a half ago. Yep.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was a big relief when you came on, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Sounds like it was a relief for you. It was a bigger relief for me.
Yeah.
That was like the original team then. So it was you, Jill. Was Angela on at this time?
Nope.
It was me, Jill. Seth came on soon after I did. Yeah, we were a tiny team and we were sort of figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
Finding our roles, building the system. So
Okay, so jumping into join fulfillment with the topic of the podcast. I didn't know that you went to Germany and you did those volunteer work. Tell me kind of more about that and how that contributed to the join fulfillment, why you chose to do that rather than maybe get a different job, or was that kind of the options due to language barriers?
yeah, for sure. I think I just wanted to do something and be involved in the community, especially since like I left my job, I left my family, I left my friends. My husband was a military contractor out there, so he was working 12-hour shifts. A lot of times he was working overnight, so he'd come home and be sleeping a lot. We did travel a ton together, but during those downtimes, I was like, oh goodness, like, what am I going to do? Like, I need to find something. And so I just sought out as many opportunities as I could. Because I wasn't a spouse, like we were just dating, they reserved jobs for military spouses only. So I could not get a job there. And so there was a ton of opportunities for me to volunteer. So again, worked with Red Cross as like the head of volunteers. So organize all the volunteers and place them into the different opportunities around the military bases. I wrote for a magazine for Stars and Stripes, just on a volunteer basis. And then the women's club was awesome because I got entrenched into the community there, right? Like a lot of the women took me under their wing. They were happy for a young American to kind of be excited about what they had going on. We did a bunch of fundraising, bazaars, and, cleanups around town. And yeah, that was really great. They made friends and everything.
Talk kind of about the emotion behind doing a job like that versus doing a big role at Maui Wowie or what you're doing right now or whatever you've done. Because I can see like anytime, and I'm going to Africa on Saturday and I'm like excited about it, but not excited. Like I like the volunteer work. I feel like I get the fulfillment out of it, but I think I get more fulfillment on like, I want to move a freaking mountain of a problem, not just like serve a homeless person food, which maybe that's a little selfish of me. But how does that, I guess, how do you relate to that? Kind of a job that maybe you feel like you can have a bigger impact versus like, but I'm still giving back at a smaller level, but I still feel good about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes a village, right? And like, I think that's very admirable of you to kind of think in these like big picture ways. And I guess I've never truly been like that. I think like the tiny ways that we can all do it together can make that bigger impact. So I know that like me doing this small thing may not seem like it's, moving mountains and changing things, but I know it maybe made a difference to one person and maybe one person benefited that. And I can have comfort in that.
That's a big point.
I think that's what I need. I want that because I'm like, was it enough? Right. And then there's that satisfaction thing, but it is enough. I mean, helping one person is enough. So I think a lot of us have the ability to be satisfied with that. And that's an amazing ability because you should be. And then other people, it's just more. And that's my mind of poison that I'm trying to get out.
When you find that magic bolt, let us know.
Okay. I'll text you guys.
What was the most fulfilling part about the volunteer work versus more for-profit organizations, or is there a mixture of both?
I think for me, it's a mixture of both, right? Going to Africa and going to like maybe underserved communities is a lot different than what I did, right? Like I was in a well-established area and it was more helping organizations, do better with their resources, right? It wasn't necessarily like helping underprivileged people. And so I kind of related the work I did with what I did with Maui Wowie. What I do at Dirty Dough is just like helping people. And I think that's what like my passion is helping business owners, helping people realize their dreams of business ownership. And I kind of think those things go hand in hand. It's just kind of like helping them problem solve, helping them get to the next step to realize their dreams.
Awesome. Let's jump into that. You mentioned the postpartum depression. And so a question we ask typically is what is a big mental health struggle that you've had? So whether it's the postpartum depression or another time, can you speak to one of those things and one of those times and also what you did to overcome that?
Yeah, for sure. So that was really tough. Like I said, I had lost my identity. I was going through postpartum depression, which was manifesting in postpartum rage for me. And it was really like tough to not feel like I had any control over my emotions. So at the time I sought out therapy and I saw a few therapists, and that's how I learned about like, I am going to be more successful as a working mom than being at home with my kids, which was tough, right? Because there's also that mom guilt. There's that guilt of leaving or choosing to leave your children for this. But in the end, I knew that I would be, like I said, a better person, mom, partner. And I think lately now I've been struggling a little bit because I'm working 40 to 50 hours a week. I have 2 toddlers, right? and I'm going through the grind, I'm going through the routine. And then it's like, well, I am unhappy. Like, what is that? And I think it's not being able to find time for myself. And so I think my husband and I do a lot of check-in with each other to see where each other's at. And we're finding that life is just feeling really big and hard and overwhelming right now. And so I've started therapy again, which is helping me realize that and what I can do about it. But what we call them tiny joys, right? Like I can't overhaul my life right now to do something really big that's going to bring me a ton of joy. Like I can't go travel through the Italian countryside, like drinking wine. You know what I mean? That doesn't make sense. So like, what can I do to bring myself tiny joys? Can I like share a nice bottle of Chianti at the end of the day with my husband? Can I take half an hour while he's cooking dinner to read my favorite book? So it's just like carving out those tiny things to do for myself to like realize like what brings me joy beyond just like the hustle and the grind.
Can I ask, like, how was it finding a therapist? And was it the first time kind of working with it? How did you find it? Because I think a lot of people don't know where to start. I think they know that they're unhappy. Well, what has that journey been like for you? And how has like your support system helped with that?
Yeah. And I think it's tough, right? We're slowly, like, I think society is slowly becoming more acceptable to that, but it is still tough. I think resources are still hard to find. At the time I had really great insurance. Now my husband has really great insurance. And so it's very available, right? I can quickly click on my insurance page, say I want to see a virtual therapist, and they give me options. But making that decision is hard too, right? Like, do I want to become that vulnerable with someone? Do I want to face the fact that I might need to make a significant change in my life, that I might need medication? And so I think it was important for me to like lean on my support system. So, you know, my girlfriends and talking to them about their own situations, my husband, like understanding that's the right decision for myself. But ultimately I found that it was, and talking to them really helped and benefited me personally.
And then so finding the actual therapist was through the insurance. And how?
Yeah.
That's a big misconception as well, is like, oh, it's super expensive, which it can be. I've always found that it's a $10 copay or a $20 copay, right? Mm-hmm. Like I could just, even if they're not a good therapist, if I could just talk about myself for $20 and somebody will listen to it, it's a good deal. Anyways, well, Mike, maybe you speak to how you found a therapist. I just went on Google. I didn't have both in California. And then when I came back here, I did it again. And then I got a dude that I didn't want to tell him that we weren't jiving. So I
that's the worst when you get stuck.
And then I switched finally. Anyways,
finding the right fit is tough. And I think that was my problem first when I first had my son, is like, I just went with someone and I don't like love the advice she was giving me. And so now I'm like in the process of interviewing therapists. So I've had like a bunch of sessions back to back to like make sure that works. And I think that's important too, right? If it doesn't feel right, if you're not feeling comfortable opening up and being vulnerable with someone, it's okay to say that and like move on to something else.
Yep. Yeah. And those times are very short and precious. Like you don't have much time, which is the hard part. Like when most people that are seeing a therapist, they're there for a reason and they need help right away. So it really is counterbalancing. Like when my wife and I, we started doing marriage counseling probably 7 years ago. And that was like, it was like make or break it for the marriage. And we had to go through like 7 counselors because my wife did not like any of them. And it really does take a while to find somebody you can be vulnerable with, because not everybody has the viewpoints of the background that you want to be engaging with. And it's a challenge, but asking around and finding people, and also like really understanding the therapist point of view. But like, I think the one plug is you're not stuck with them. Like if you don't like them, leave right away.
Right.
I feel the guilt. I'm like, this guy's going to think I don't like him.
Well, that's how Shane,
and that's why I'm at therapy. We could probably put that same insecurity. It's keeping me there.
You were stuck.
Yeah. Let me tell you the story as to why I actually left this guy finally. So we were talking about psychedelics. Very Mormon guy.
Wait, so how long ago was this? Can you share?
Yeah, maybe a year ago. I don't know. Maybe a little bit less. And he said, and I was like sharing my experiences with them. And he's like, wow, that sounds amazing. Like, I'm depressed. I want to go do that. And he goes, what should I tell my wife? I was like, I'm not your therapist, tell me.
Where should I send my bill?
He committed to going and he canceled like 2 hours before. And I'm like, all right, that was at least my excuse to not go back. I was like, dude, I got you booked with this. I told him I was paying for it for him. So
You were that far?
oh yeah. I was like,
You're a good man.
if you want to come and you feel like it'll help you, let's go freaking do this. And that was the last time I saw him. I just never went back. That was the plug, but I already knew that I didn't want to see him for a while. But that was I was my therapist, I think.
There you go.
Then I found a different dude that has been pretty good. That's kind of a side note. There's a ketamine clinic here in Pleasant Grove, or maybe it's Linden. I don't know, but they do therapy before, and then you do a ketamine session, and then after all in one. And the lady is phenomenal. I'm not
Doing it recently?
Yeah, maybe like 3 weeks ago.
Tell me about it.
Oh,
Another time.
yeah.
Another time. I don't want to take from Melissa. So how has it been getting back into therapy, and how are you breaking it down, and what are you learning from this time around? Because it's a different set of situations. Before it was like identity, right? And I do want to talk a little bit about that because, we talk a lot about work identity, but how was it for you as a mom, transitioning and like really understanding? Did you have to figure out who you were? Did you have to figure out what your passions were? Let's maybe start there on identity.
Yeah, for sure. And especially becoming a mom, I get lost in that and like kind of understanding who I am working full time. It's like, who am I? What do I? And that's before I started therapy. That was kind of the questions I was asking. Was like, what will even bring me joy? Like, do I know that? Do I know who I am without being a mom, without being an employee? Right. And so I think that's a lot of the work that I'm doing, along with like reframing some of my mindset around being a mom. And Bennett, you have kids. I don't know if your wife goes through this around like some of that guilt that women and working moms feel, leaving my kids and seeing them act out and act different ways and believing that it's my fault. And because I'm not here more and because I'm not around them as much, like I am the reason for this. And so I've been doing a lot of work on reframing that, right? And understanding and like how to speak to myself positively. Like, you are a good mom. Like, you are a good mom because of this. You are invested in their success. So that makes you a good mom. It doesn't matter how they're acting. You're trying to correct that. So it's a lot of work, right? Like I think you're your biggest critic. And so reframing how you talk to yourself, how you think about yourself is really difficult. And so that's a lot of the work that I'm currently doing right now.
That's very much what my wife shared with me. And she doesn't work, but she still has am I good enough mom? Am I doing a good enough job? Does my daughters love me enough? And I think it's also kind of unfair because I do work and then I come home and then it's playtime. It's dates every day. And then, so I'm always seen kind of as the fun person, which then she's like, I'm cleaning up all the crap all day. And then you come home and kind of steal the glory. And that sucks. And I totally agree with it that sucks. But yeah, and then she also having on our third kid, she went through a pretty good postpartum depression, which I didn't know about until after she was over it. Then she decided to share it with me.
She didn't tell you?
She didn't tell me.
Did she know?
Yeah. She didn't want to stress me out is what she said, which is like, oh my gosh, that's terrible for me to portray myself in a way that she didn't feel comfortable. Cause she's like, oh, you're already stressed enough. I don't want to burden you so much.
But part of that depression, right? Like I went through some of that with my husband is like, if I tell you now you have to absorb that feeling with me. And now I also have to take on the guilt that you feel because I feel like that. Like it's a lot, right? It's part of that depression. It's part of like, why, like I am made to have children. Why can't I handle it? Right. Which is super unfair. Like, it's because it's really, really hard and there are not enough resources for women to go through this after having our children piece. So I understand why she didn't tell you, but I'm hoping there's more education around it and more civil awareness that it exists now to hopefully women will start getting more of that support right after they have kids.
You said I'm a woman, so I'm supposed to be able to handle this. I feel like she's expressed something similar. And kind of I'm judging the Utah culture a little bit too much, but it's kind of the everything's perfect culture. And because she's like, I'll talk to, and she's from Mexico. She's like, I'll talk to my friends. And it's like, we talk about how hard life is a lot of the times and how hard it is to raise kids. And then I ask one of your friends' wives, how is it having the fourth kid? And they're like, oh, it's amazing. And she's like, bullshit. It's got to be terrible. You got 4 kids, 6 and under, 4 kids, 6 and under, but everything's perfect. And she's just like, oh, I can't relate to people like that because they don't tell me their vulnerabilities. And then I don't feel like I can express mine because I'm just lesser than them. And anyways, it drives her crazy.
Yeah. I mean, that's tough whenever anyone's like, how is it having 2 kids? I'm like, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, I just try to tell everyone that to like, hopefully make other people realize like, it's okay that it's super hard. Right.
Yeah. There's no need to hide it, which is when people ask me how I'm doing, especially for the last like 3 months, I'm like, it's hell some days and it's great some days. Yeah. I don't say good anymore. And people are like, don't tell me that. I don't want to, like, it's the truth. Depends on it's not even what day you ask me. Depends on what hour of the day. I'll tell you if it's right. If it was good that hour, if it was terrible that hour, because it's so up and down based on what the last meeting was or what the last phone call was about, or whether we closed a deal or we lost a deal. I mean, it's just so up and down on the roller.
I mean, you're the founder of a startup. I wouldn't expect anything less. So.
That's why I've got so many gray hairs. You're going to have some coming up pretty soon.
Well, I was speaking with Cam Crandall. He's the owner of Soda Mix yesterday. And he was saying, what do you do like when you collect franchise fees and how do you allocate that? And, are you, and he sent me the text. I just called him and we spoke for a while. I was like, well, if nothing else, if you got from this call is just know that nobody else knows either.
Nobody.
So just know that we're all making it up, Cam. And he laughed and I laughed. But it is like, yeah, everybody else has got to figure it out. And it's like, no, nobody's got to figure it out. We just all act like we do. And
roll fake nets, all we make.
Really vulnerable to tell the truth.
So maybe that's a key from this podcast. Be vulnerable, tell the truth where you're at, and just let everything else flow.
When I started getting into like the psychedelic space, what I define judgmentally as a lot of weirdos, And when which is good though, because it's like if somebody's talking to me about something that I view as weird, and not saying it is, but in my, like talking about like several past lives or astral traveling or these things I've never really heard of, I'm like, okay, well, I could tell you anything. Like the weirder you are, the weirder it gives me permission to be, and you just feel comfortable with those people. Like you're just like, well, I know that you're not expecting me to judge you for the things that you're sharing with me. So you're also not going to judge me. I can share anything.
Aliens are real.
And it does give you that, like when people are super weird, I'm way more comfortable around them because I'm just like, they don't care and I shouldn't care either. So it's kind of like, let go of the ego, So anyways, I found that has been very helpful for me to be around people that are very vulnerable.
Yeah. Gotta let go of the ego. So with the last couple of questions, how do you help others find more joy and fulfillment?
How do I help others find more joy and fulfillment? That's a good question and a tough one. Like I said, I work full time. I have 2 kids. I can barely find it for myself. So I think my goal is to just like connect with people. That's all I feel like I have the space to give right now is just like connect and ask them about themselves and find a commonality and build relationships with people. I hope I'm like an inviting space for like advice and laughter and comfort. And I think that's all I can give right now, right, to people.
Well, let me answer that question on how you do that. I mean, knowing that when we sign up a franchisee and they're in your hands, I know a lot of franchisees are really excited to start businesses, whether it's a second or third business or the first business. And just knowing that they have that support, I think provides a lot of other people. You just fulfilling your role is letting other people have a lot of joy and fulfillment. And then for me, kind of achieving the mission statement, which I get a lot of joy and fulfillment from, helping more people get into business, spreading the mental health message. I can't do that without you. So like you are fulfilling a ton of joy and fulfillment for me personally, and I know for other people in the company as well. So it is, maybe there's a lot more ripple effects that you're not seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do take a lot of pride in like being able to answer questions and be available for franchisees and really connect with them, right? Like answering their questions, but also being like, oh, you mentioned you're going on vacation. Where are you headed? Like, I want to build relationships with franchisees. So I am a trusted source for them, right? Like, of course, I'm part of this corporation that they've invested in, but I also want to be like a true support system for them, someone that they can come to and trust and rely on.
Stop doing such a good job because we get all the text messages now. We're starting to get personal text messages because Melissa answers right away.
Here's Mike's number. Ask it.
Do you want to ask your last question?
Yeah. Last question for you. It's the tough one. What do you want to be remembered by? What's
I want to
leave behind?
I want to be remembered by being a really great mom, being a safe place for my kids, and just a good person that brought joy to people's life, whether it be having a really great party or giving great advice or being a good friend. Like, I want to just be remembered as being a good person.
I love it. Okay. Well, I'm expecting the Pringles photo.
Okay, let me go find it in the archive.
Text it over. We'll upload it. I'm just joking, but maybe I do want to really.
It's my origin story. I'll take it.
We put that on the Dirty Dough Instagram employee recognition.
0 to hero, Melissa. How do people connect with you, Melissa? Are you on social media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Melissa Seatboth. You can find me and my kids and my reads. I love to read, so lots of book recommendations. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Paul.
Yes, for sure. Thanks, guys.